Okay, we're going to try this again from the start.
Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time show. We have the Roadcaster plugged in, so the mic is working, which always is a good way to start the show and not plug the stream deck in for the scene switcher and think it's the microphone. So the microphone is working. There are actual audio noises coming out of the microphone this time. So a nice, fun way to always start the live show. No hot mic, just a dead mic, and confusion on why the mic is dead and the Roadcaster isn't showing up. But nonetheless, the NFL Week 10 is upon us. Interesting week because I don't have a ton of bets this week, so I hope you are loaded up for bear and you don't have any lagging problems, because I'm going to have trouble filling time with talking about bets that I don't have this week. But what'd you make of this Week 10 slate here?
I'll be honest with you. I was a little taken aback by some of the bets and some of the odds that we were given on the sports book. I didn't think that there was too much value, which now I understand why you don't have a lot of picks, but I was able to scrounge together some stuff. Hopefully we can make some money this week.
Yeah, I got a handful of just straight bets against the spread, but I was really, really thin on player props. I was trying to look through and every, sort of what I do is I'll go through the slate, earlier in the week. I'll write down players who I think are going to have big weeks, and then sort of look at their player props through the thing. And everything I looked at, I just didn't see it present a ton of value. And I just have to cross it off because, I might like it, but if I don't think the value's there, I'm just not going to be able to do it. So we're going to hit it up and try to get through it. We do have a mic working, so that's always the key to start a good show. But
well, I'm glad I got to test my other mic out first, because you couldn't hear me at all, so I had to switch back to this Yeti. But yeah, let's get going, man. Let's talk some football.
I heard static gurgles, so that was always
that's always good. Yeah.
So we would have had dead silence from my end and static gurgles from yours. So nonetheless, let's get into it. Let's kick things off with the Minnesota Vikings versus the Buffalo Bills. The Minnesota Vikings continue to live the charmed life of the NFL football season. They finally match up against a top-tier team this week, and lo and behold, Josh Allen has done something to his arm. Buffalo really isn't saying much. He is active, I will say that, but I don't know what that means. But, Minnesota basically was dominated for 3/4 of that Washington game. One interception later, Minnesota sort of finds their way to backdoor and win this game, which I think basically should just be their team slogan: "We backdoor our way to wins," and are right on top of having the best record in the NFC. So what do you make of Vikings Buffalo? The number I saw was 6.5. And it's there, which probably tells me that 6.5, there's probably going to be Josh Allen in there. I think if it was Keenum, it'd be under 5 for sure. So we're going to play it like Allen is in there, but we can talk a little bit if Keenum goes in there. But Vikings Bills 6.5.
Yeah, when I looked at it, I believe it was on Saturday morning. It was down to 3.5, I believe. So I had a feeling that Josh probably wasn't going to go, but the line jumped back up this Sunday. And even so, I'm glad you opened with this one. I talked about the bets I had. This is one game that I have no bets on. I just feel like there's way too much risk, even if Josh Allen does play. The fact that he came down to basically a game time decision just kind of makes me really nervous from the Buffalo standpoint. You flip it over to Minnesota, and again, I feel like there's so much risk, especially with that Buffalo defense. We've seen Minnesota, even though they've got a good record, we've seen them kind of falter when they play against top defense. And Buffalo, one of the best defenses in the league, could probably give them a hard time as far as stats are concerned. So, in my opinion, I just thought there was too much risk with the injuries to actually take a flyer on this game.
Yeah, really, I have nothing on this game as well because I just wasn't going to play the game. One, not knowing what Josh Allen's injury is, playing or not playing, and I just didn't want to take that risk. Now, if you could tell me like yesterday where you tell me Case Keenum and playing and it's a 3, honestly, I might look at the Bills here because I think Case Keenum can do a job here for a little bit, and the Bills could step up for a 2-3 week stretch and maintain not what they were doing or are, but at least win football games with Case Keenum there. But it's one of those where I want to see Josh Allen first, but there's basically no way I'm taking the Vikings on the second week of a road trip in Buffalo, even if they are getting 6.5 points. So I didn't have much there. You'd think maybe this would sort of be an open offensive game, so maybe you grab some of the receivers' numbers. But like I said, if you don't know who's going to be the quarterback, and like guys like Diggs were sitting at like 89 over under on receiving yards, and as much as I like Case Keenum and Diggs have played together in Minnesota, funny enough, it was too risky, and I just wasn't confident on the other side, too. Judging by what we've seen from the Vikings, who have played one really, really good team so far this year, the Eagles, and Cousins and Jefferson didn't look good. So I was a no-go all the way around, no matter what. It just wasn't a game I could really find much action with, and it's just sort of a interesting game to see how hurt Josh Allen really is more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to talk a little Buffalo, I guess I'll take this chance to give props to the New York Jets last week. They don't have a game this week, so we really don't get a chance to talk about them. But they handed it to them, man. And I know Josh Allen was banged up, but still pretty impressive win. That Jets defense, I think, is starting to turn some heads, and they're inching their way towards the legit status as far as defenses are concerned.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. How much do you trust this Jets team? I think defensively they've shown they could get stops, especially, with the cornerback group and pressure up the middle. But, I mean, we talked about it a little. Wilson can, say all he wants. He doesn't care about stats, and it's all about the wins. But, eventually you aren't going to always hold Buffalo to 10 points. So I'm still nervous about them scoring enough points. They basically had to play a perfect defensive game, last week to beat the Bills. You can't throw out 10 perfect defensive games on the season. The offense is going to have to do something at some point.
Yeah, and that's the only reason why I think they're still doubters as far as them being a legit contender or not. Unfortunately for them, they play in the same division, so it's going to be really tough for them, especially with the offense they've been able to put on film. But as far as defense is concerned, I think their defense is good enough to keep them in games, especially against those mid-tier teams.
All right, so let's move on to our next game and go from one questionable quarterback to another one. Once again, I'm pretty sure Tannehill's going to go, but, honestly, you don't really know. So Broncos at the Titans. Titans have, it's not just Tannehill. Defensively, they're pretty banged up on that side of the ball as well. So it's... this was another one where I really wanted to grab Tennessee here, but I don't want to grab Tennessee, and then Tannehill comes out there, 2 snaps in, can't go on his ankle. We get Malik Willis. They have defensive injuries. As much as I dislike the Denver Broncos, and I think this is a really nice line here for the Tennessee Titans, I couldn't grab much here anyway. I got one player prop in this one.
Yeah, I got a few here. I agree with you. It's definitely a little nerve-wracking, with the Tannehill situation. But I do think that it speaks volume that even though we're unsure about Tannehill's status, they still have him listed as the starter. Even when I was looking at the prop bets, Tannehill is listed on there, so it gives me an inkling to believe that he will see the field. The question is, how good is that ankle? But even so, I'm very disappointed with the Broncos so far this season. I was one of their supporters coming into the season. I thought they would do a lot of great things. Unfortunately, it hasn't turned out that way. They haven't been riding. Broncos country hasn't been riding as hard as I thought they would. But I'll give you my plays for this game. I'm going to head and take Tennessee minus 2.5 here. I know that there's concern with the quarterback situation, but I think it's favorable enough that this Tennessee team could squeeze out at least a 3-point victory. So 2.5, I feel like there's good enough room there to at least make some money. So I'm going to take Tennessee minus 2 at minus 110. Then I got a couple prop bets here. I'm going to take Henry anytime touchdown at minus 175. The value is not great, but he's one of the top touchdown scorers for running backs in the league. So he's going to get his. I have Jerry Jeudy anytime touchdown. This is just based off of value. We've seen kind of Russell Wilson just kind of spread it out. You really don't know who he's going to go for this time. But at plus 280, I thought there was enough value there that this secondary for Tennessee tends to get plays, especially against teams that are sort of on their same level. I'm not saying that the Broncos are, but I do feel like they're pretty close here. So a plus 280, I thought there was enough good value there. And my last one here, Gordon, over 30.5 rushing yards at minus 110. Don't feel great about that, but I do feel that if he can get going, there's the split in that backfield, and if he can get going, I feel like he'll be able to do enough, especially against this Tennessee defense, to muster up at least 31 yards.
Yeah. Well, to your apologetic terms on the Denver Broncos, you were not aware that Russell Wilson died 3 years ago and his zombie corpse has been playing football for the last 2 years.
Listen, if my zombie corpse could warrant the type of money that he got, listen, all the power to him. Good for him. But yeah, he's definitely a shell of himself. It's been a drastic change as far as my perception of Russell Wilson goes.
All right. Like I said, I have one, and this is for our colleague, Dynamite David. He assured me today that Traylon Burks was coming back, and it was going to mean something. Despite us teasing him. I thought about jumping on that one, but I'll be honest with you. As much as I think, his ceiling is really high, I don't think he's quite there yet. I don't think he's the type of guy where you're like, oh, we get Burks, he's going to completely change his offense. All due respect to him and Dynamite, but I just don't see it. But I thought about jumping on that one too. Yeah, I think he's grasping for straws here in the Bass game. Nonetheless, Traylon Burks' anytime touchdown was plus 370. So, maybe he throws him a token one here. He gets one. It's for our colleague more than anything who was selling me hard that the Traylon Burks back healthy was going to alter the Tennessee Titans passing game somehow. That's all I got on that one. We'll see what this one is. We'll move to the next one. I got a fun stat on this one after we're going Jacksonville Jaguars, Kansas City Chiefs, minus 9 for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, fun little trivia that I looked up going through my stats. What team do you think has the most first downs so far this year in the NFL?
I guess just based off the fact you're throwing it in this game, I'm going to say the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's correct. The Jacksonville Jaguars lead the NFL in first downs at 203 first downs on the year. You wouldn't know it by their record. You probably would know it if you've watched them play, certainly as much as I have, sadly enough, that they've actually been really good on offense. They just tend to do a couple dumb things a game that cost him a game here. But what do you look at in this matchup of the Jags and Chiefs? This just, honestly, we know I'm going to take the Jags here because somehow I've gotten into the mode of taking them every week. But this just seems to have the normal Kansas City 2.5 added, point push here because it's Kansas City who it just seemed like a lot, 9 to me. I was curious where you were thinking on this one.
I was actually on the same boat as you. I was going to take Jacksonville with the points. I mean, it felt like one of those games, kind of like that Buffalo game last week versus the Jets, where you expect the team to dominate, but the other team shows up and it changes the outcome of the game. I just wasn't brazen enough. I knew that you would take them, so I figured one of us was enough for that one. I got a couple plays in this one, mostly just prop bets. I'm going to take an Etienne anytime touchdown at minus 130. And I know that there's a good chance Kansas City dominates this game offensively, and it causes Jacksonville to abandon the run. But even so, I think that Etienne is such a big part of that offense, even in the passing game, that even if they're down and they abandon the run, there's still a good chance that he can get in for a touchdown. He's so athletic and so explosive that it's almost a no-brainer to take him week in and week out. I've got Edward Hilaire here, anytime touchdown at plus 150. We know that he's a dual threat coming out of the backfield, catches balls. He runs the ball pretty well too. And if he gets going, Kansas City tends to stick with him throughout the game. So at plus 150, I thought there was pretty good value there.
The last time he got going was at LSU in the national championship game.
Listen, I got him on fantasy, okay? He's done pretty well for me so far this season, and I'm banking on him this week because of injuries. My last play for this game here, Etienne over 18.5 receiving yards at minus 110. Again, this goes with the logic. You think that Kansas City is going to win this game or will be ahead in this game, and Jacksonville will be forced to pass the ball more than running, taking away the balance. Even then, as I mentioned, I think Etienne is such a big part of this offense that 18.5 yards receiving, assuming that they're down in this game, still seems like a pretty good bet.
Yeah. I like, I got one play in this one. I'm going Jags plus my 9 here. I think they can cover this 9 points. I don't know if they can win, but I was staring at that money line pretty hard at the plus 325. So it was looking at me, but I didn't quite grab it here. So Jags plus the 9 for me. I didn't want to touch any of the props because I also looked at the weather. It's a little, let's just say, crappy there. I would suggest any bettors start looking at the weather in these NFL games because any outdoor stadium, especially in the northern or midwestern hemisphere, it's not going to be as clean as it has been. So I didn't like the weather there to take a lot of the offensive players that I saw, and this was one of the ones that I thought they juiced up. They finally juiced up ATN a bunch. I thought Juju was juiced up a little more than he probably should be. So I just got the Jags plus 9. Next game I'm interested your take in because I ended up bailing out and not taking anything in this one. And it's Cleveland versus Miami. Miami's a 3.5 point favorite. I don't know. Something about Miami just tells me they never cover. I didn't look up their against the spread record, but it always feels they get these 3.5, 4.5 point lines, and it's always just under that. They get the win, and they throw up flashy offensive stats, so you think they dominate the game, but it always seems to be just under that spread line. So, I couldn't quite take here Cleveland going into Miami, but I assume a lot of people are going to jump on Miami here. So I was curious how you saw this one, or maybe you were big on Cleveland thinking they could go down there and, maybe upset the Dolphins a little bit. What were you thinking in this one?
As much as I like the Cleveland running attack, I don't think that I can jump on them just yet, at least not until we see them with their starting quarterback under center. You mentioned that I believe when I was looking through the sports book, now I could be wrong on this, but I vaguely remember seeing that 73% of the money was on Miami, I believe. So that worries me a little bit, especially with not knowing what their what their record is against the spread. But I do have a few plays here, and it's more gut feeling than anything. Now, before I do give you those plays,
it's probably bad when I take them. I know that.
So listen, before I get into my picks, I did want to bring up that thing you said about weather, and it's something that I was going to bring up in that Dallas Green Bay game once we talk about that one. But definitely, I didn't do my due diligence this week and look at weather reports, but it's definitely something that we're going to start focusing on, especially when you look at what's happened to us in our hometown. It seemed like it was summer yesterday, and I get out this morning and I need to put on my Snuggie just to walk the dog. So
well, I think that's it. It's been basically good weather all over, the U.S. And then all of a sudden, this last week, it just sort of turned, and we're starting to get a little bit of ugliness, especially like up north and stuff.
Yeah, but I'll give you my place here. I'm going to go ahead and ride Miami minus 3.5 here at minus 105. Not a huge fan of that little hook there, but I just don't trust Cleveland.
They put a hook on everything.
Every week.
It's right underneath the hook.
They'll probably win by 3, and I'll get screwed. But I have to ride Miami. I just don't like what Cleveland has done. We saw what they did last week. It just didn't look great. We saw their game against the Pats, and they just haven't looked great on defense. And it's something that they usually hang their hat on is their rushing attack and their defense, and they haven't been themselves. So I'm going to ride Miami minus 3.5 here at 105. And then I've got 2 prop bets here. This is almost a given every week. Nick Chubb, anytime touchdown, minus 135. I thought that was decent value considering that he's one of the top touchdown scorers for running backs. And he's going to get a ton of carries, that. And then my second one here, this one's just based off of value. I thought about Tyreek Hill, but he was in the minus. So I'm going to go ahead and roll with Waddle at plus 120, anytime touchdown. I believe that parlay we had last week, that same game parlay with Hill and Waddle paid off last week. So I'm going to put some of that money into Waddle this week. Again, anytime touchdown, Waddle plus 120.
Yeah, I got 2, player props in this one. You mentioned the Cleveland Browns defense. It's been horrible against the rushing attack. The Dolphins' rushing attack seems to get better every week. The problem is I don't quite know who's going to get the carries.
That was my question. I didn't know who was going to get the carries. Otherwise, I'd feel more confident.
So I ended up just taking Wilson Jr., 100-plus rushing yards, plus 880. Raheem Mostert, 90-plus rushing yards, plus 680. I also have a parlay with the 2 that we'll give at the end. And this was one of the one where I had a lot of, player prop numbers written down. And everything I looked at the 2+ touchdown props. Hill was basically like 2-1, which is absolutely ridiculous at 2+. And then I thought, okay, I'll just do this like I did with Wilson and Mostert and take 2+ touchdowns on both, and I'll be okay. And theirs was like 465 and 600, and I'm like, we can't have under 6-1 on 4 different guys to get 2+ touchdowns in the game. That's not very good value, because Waddle was underneath them at like 4-1. So basically, they had like 5 guys. Gesicki was in there as well at like under 7-1 to get 2+ touchdowns. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen because 9 touchdowns are not going to be doled out between 4 different people here. As fancy as last week was, where we did hit the parlay, it wasn't everybody scoring 2+ touchdowns. So I couldn't really take that. So I just went with the big yardage prop, and, maybe one of them will hit it because, Cleveland's rush defense is so bad, but it does make it difficult because basically I think they literally, Wilson and Mostert got the exact same number of carries last week. So, that makes things difficult in the prop game if you can't tell me who's going to get what. So Wilson 100+, 880, Mostert 90+, 680, and see if 1 or 2 of them can hit one. And I, honestly, with the way the Cleveland defense is played, it's possible both hit it. Let's go to the Texans and the New York Giants. I bet we have a differing opinion on this one. I just got a feel. So what are you looking at, Houston Texans, New York Giants?
Oh, there we go. I try to give you a little bit of mute time.
Dynamite live show today.
We're doing great so far. If this has any inkling on how our bets are going to go, then things are looking up, I guess.
This will not be the tape we send off to ESPN for audition.
Yeah, probably not our best moments here, but listen, it's at least we haven't had any lag so far, so that's a plus.
Yeah, I know. I will say just audio, no lag so far.
Yeah. Listen, maybe next week we'll go back to lag and audio's perfect, but for this week it's just the audio. Anyways, to go to his Texans Giants game, the Giants have been pretty impressive so far this season. I know that a lot of people are still doubting them because of who they played, who they haven't played. But I do have to say that it's still impressive. Based off what we thought they were going to do this year, they've definitely turned some heads, at least my head. So I'll give you what my plays are going to be for this game. I've got a few prop bets. I do have a spread play, but it's only for the first half. I'm taking the Giants -3 for the first half at +100, which I thought was pretty good value considering the fact that they're favored in this game for the entire game. So first half, New York Giants -3 +100. Then I've got Saquon Barkley, anytime touchdown at -150, not great value. And I also looked at his 2+ touchdowns. Wasn't great at +420, but I still think that there's a good chance for that play here. I've got Daniel Jones over 186.5 passing yards at -110. I know that he hasn't been the greatest, stat provider when it comes to passing yards, but I do think against this Texans defense, there's a good chance that he can at least accomplish, 200 yards here. So Daniel Jones over 186.5 -110. And then my last one here, Pierce over 13.5 receiving yards at -110. Because I assume the way the game is going to play out, the Giants are going to take a lead. And he's going to become a little more of a weapon when it comes to the passing game. So 13.5 yards, not crazy to think about, especially with as talented as he's been so far this season.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the 2+ touchdown props. I don't know if everybody bet them last week.
It's because of last week.
And,
last week, I think
100 different people made a bunch of money, and now they've lowered them all by 200 points or something. But
dude,
they were ridiculous today.
Just going through like my Reddit feed, for like gambling, I saw at least 15, and not just straight bets. I'm talking about parlays of over 2+ touchdowns. It was just crazy how many of these we had last week, and I think it's definitely undervalued the 2 touchdowns this week.
Yeah, I this was another one I looked at because I thought there'd be good value here with a couple of these guys in this game, and it just wasn't there. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to take the Houston Texans +5. Now I got a little bit of a reasoning here. If you look at the numbers, the Texans pass-wise have been one of the best teams, one against pressure and one against pressure against man-to-man teams, which is what the New York Giants are. They are, a zero blitz, man-to-man coverage team, and the Texans have been really, really good against that. So I think they might hang with them. I got a couple Davis Mills parlays as well that I'll get to at the end. But, I just think this number here, I think the Texans can hang with them because I think they sort of play into, a little bit of what the Houston Texans do well. We'll see if that, stat holds true. But it was just something that caught my eye, which is why I wasn't huge on the Giants this week. And it might also be one of those where I think the Giants might be one of those teams where you give them points, which I think they've gotten points pretty much every week so far this year. They're good, and when you make them a favorite and almost a touchdown favorite, they might not be quite as enticing. So, Houston Texans +5. I'm well aware this game could also be over in the first 10 minutes, and we're not having to even pay attention. But the stats told me that, Houston should be able to pass on this team because they've been really good against teams like this so far this year. All right, let's move to the Detroit Lions versus the Chicago Bears, -2.5. This is one I got 0 bets on, and I will tell you, this is a Dynamite David favorite. He really liked the Bears. My question was, who the hell looks at this game and really wants to bet on it? Because I said, when the Lions play the Bears, this is an auto cross-off. Not to mention, there probably will be some weather issues here. I wanted basically nothing to do with this game, but I'm curious what you think here.
I'm just kidding. And there's no audio issues this time. I had muted. Okay, so last week I told you that I had to jump on the Detroit just because I've been riding them all season long now. This was not necessarily a game based off the bets that I'm giving that I'm going to ask people to take. I wouldn't recommend them, okay? But I'm going to give you what my picks are. If you think they're good, go ahead and jump on them. But here's my plays for this game. I'm on the
Also,
opposite side of
if you've
Dynamite.
looked at Dynamite David's college football record so far this year, I wouldn't be jumping on any advice right off the bat.
Hey, listen, he might hit the NFL, man. He might be trying to make the jump to the NFL here. So that might be the scenario that's going on. But I'm going to go ahead and jump on Detroit here +3. Now, I don't think that, you could go wrong either way. I think both these teams are pretty bad. The Chicago offense has definitely picked up their players of late, and it's all because of Justin Fields and his running attack. He's been running the ball with a lot more confidence, which then gives him a little more confidence throwing the ball. Now, I still see some of the mistakes that he's made throughout the year. Where he overthrows guys, underthrows guys, or just misreads the coverage. So it still scares me. But I'm going to go ahead and jump on Detroit here +3 at -115. I do have a couple prop bets also. Justin Fields, anytime touchdown at +125. I thought the way he's been running the ball to get a plus number on him for an anytime touchdown was still pretty decent. So +125, I'm jumping on that one. I've got a St. Brown anytime touchdown, and this is just based off value for the Detroit Lions offensive players. +130, not horrible. He still needs to get going. We started the season off really, really hot, and he's fallen off. Reminds me a little bit of like the Kirk situation in Jacksonville. And my last one here is Claypool, over 35.5 receiving yards at -115. Chicago's not known for throwing the ball a lot, but there were several instances last week where I saw Claypool actually beat the defender or, run a really good crisp route, and either he was being held or Justin Fields just wasn't looking his direction. So I do think there's a good chance for him, especially against this Lions defense that we know is probably one of the worst defenses in the league. The weather could be an issue here. I didn't look at the weather, as I mentioned earlier, but you're talking about Chicago this time of year. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty bad. But even so, I think that 35.5 receiving yards, not horrible. It might be the only passing yards that Fields gets for the day, but 35.5 for Claypool at -115.
Yeah. Like I said, nothing for me. I'm going to go on a mini Fields rant, mostly because I was listening to podcasts and shows all week, gloating about how good Fields has been. I will say he's improved, and he's running the ball great, but he also passed for 115 yards last week. It's not like he's back there dropping dimes anywhere. It just annoyed me a little bit. And then my favorite thing is they used because he threw 3 touchdown passes. Well, those are a little fluky. If you're on the 1-yard line and you throw a touchdown pass, it's not quite the same as launching a 50-yard bomb into a receiver's hands. It just annoyed me a little bit. I will say he's playing much better than he was at the beginning of the year. They sort of found this offense where it works with him rushing, but he's not exactly lighting it up in the passing game either. I can do without the, how great he's been. He threw for 115 yards last week. Let's, settle down. It was impressive that he was able to run all over the Dolphins, but, he's not dropping dimes yet. So let's chill out with that. So nothing for me in this one.
He's no Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, that basically they're running a hybrid offense like, Lamar Jackson, except Lamar Jackson can also pass.
Can throw the ball.
So nothing in that one. We'll go to the one where I do have some bets on Saints Steelers. This keeps moving to Pittsburgh. I get it. Saints on the road in a bad weather situation, not great, but I don't know if the bye week has thrown people off what Pittsburgh has done basically all year long, but they aren't a very good football team. And, whether you want to believe it or not, the Saints are fully still in play to win this division. So this would be an important game to try to win here. And I just think the Saints have a lot more talent. I know it's just sitting there being trappy, but it's not even a road favorite anymore. The Saints are +1 now. So I feel even more confident. I don't get why money is coming in on Pittsburgh. I get if you want to not take the Saints, but why would you take Pittsburgh in this situation?
Now, I'm no expert here, okay, but I'm going to give you what my thoughts are as far as why the line's shifting so much, because I'll give you my play before I move on. I got one play in this game. I'm taking New Orleans here -1 at -108. You just mentioned you got him at +1. I think the line's jumping simply because of one player. There were reports that T.J. Watt was supposed to play in this game. I do remember when he was in the lineup, he caused that defense to become a good defense. They caused enough pressure to where they were in games. Now, I don't know if his first game back, he's going to make that much of an impact. I know that they're going up against a New Orleans team that struggled. They've been kind of up and down, roller coaster season so far for them, but I just don't see why there's such a swing over one player. And maybe that's what's causing all the money to come in on Pittsburgh. It's the fact that Watt's coming back. But even so, I'm going to go ahead and ride New Orleans on this one at -1, at minus 108 here. That's about the only play I have. Again, when I was looking at prop bets for this game now, I don't know if it's the TJ Watt factor, but it seemed like there was just no value whatsoever in some of these prop bets. Now, maybe you had better luck. I just checked one of my sportsbook. I didn't do a deep dive this week, so I couldn't find any value. But I was kind of hoping that maybe you had something in this game, maybe something I can look for eventually.
I got a couple in this one. One, I'm taking the Saints plus the 1. TJ Watt can come back all he wants. He ripped his pec. It didn't magically heal in 8 weeks. And the second thing, Fitzpatrick is out. That secondary is still banged up for Pittsburgh. So I get it. The Saints on the road in a cold weather game, they aren't that great in it, but that was Drew Brees and the Sean Payton teams. This is Andy Dalton, who played in Cincinnati. I hate to break it to everyone, but the weather between Cincinnati and Pittsburgh is not all that different. So I think he'll be fine dealing with this. So Saints plus 1. I looked at a couple. Jaylen Warren is going to start getting more carries because Najee Harris has been ineffective. So I got Jaylen Warren anytime touchdown plus 260. And I got Jaylen Warren 2+ touchdowns at 20-1. Maybe he can grab it.
Now there's some value at 2+ touchdowns.
That's where I have to go to find value. I have to find the Steelers' backup running back who haven't been able to block for 3 years. There's a reason why Najee Harris sucks. It's not randomly because he got bad. So those two, and then Olive, I got 2+ touchdowns at plus 1,300. Also on my sheet, I must have not been paying attention, but I did have a bet in the Minnesota-Buffalo game. I just wrote it on the wrong line. Anytime touchdown, TJ Hockenstein, plus 215. So, reverse, go back up to the first game we talked about. This show keeps getting better.
Today's been a great day, man. I'm telling you.
As we go through. So, TJ Hockenstein, anytime touchdown, plus 215. He got targeted like 10 times last week. So, Kirk finds himself a tight end, and all of a sudden, all he wants to do is check down to it. Probably not the most shocking maneuver in the world, but look for him in that Buffalo-Minnesota game. Hockenstein, anytime touchdown, but Saints plus 1, Warren, anytime touchdown, plus 260. Olive, plus 1,300, 2+ touchdowns. I mentioned Fitzpatrick is out. A couple other of the Pittsburgh secondary guys are out, so maybe he can get going a little bit. And then Jaylen Warren, anytime touchdown, and 2+ touchdowns in this one to see if we can, maybe Jaylen Warren has a big day and we get the 2+ touchdowns and hit one big. All right, the fun one to get to talk about, and then I get to zag as well, which is always my favorite thing. Indianapolis Colts, Las Vegas Raiders. The Colts are the only thing I can assume. They're in permanent, we would like to choose our next future quarterback mode by hiring a dude who was on ESPN yapping about football like we were last week as their new coach. The Raiders basically just suck. I saw a fun stat this week. They've blown 3 17-point leads this season. In the previous, however long the Raiders have existed, they have 8 total 17-point blown leads. So they're almost halfway there in one season to 17-point blown leads. The Raiders are 4-point favorites. I get the whole Colts situation here, but honestly, I'm riding the Colts +4. I'm zagging on this one. I have no doubt the Colts will be terrible in many future games, but nothing I've seen from the Raiders, who basically had one dude retire and two guys go on IR, one in Waller, who I don't even know if he's actually hurt, and everybody seems to be a little skeptical how hurt he is. So, I think players are jumping off this Raiders ship here. So I'm zagging. I think the Colts have taken a lot of shit this week, and rightfully so. That is the stupidest hire I've ever seen in my life, but nonetheless, they still all are professional football players. Taylor's going to be back this week. They activated Ryan. I know they have Sam Ellinger as the starter, but I'm wondering how quick that gets pulled aside once we, see a little more Sam Ellinger and how bad he is. So I just like the Colts this week +4 on the zag here that everybody is probably going to be pouring money in on the Raiders for some reason. I don't quite know why.
Well, let's see. For first of all, for those of you who care, Tom Brady just threw a pass to Godwin to score another touchdown. The Bucs are up 21-3 right now in the fourth quarter. So, for anyone who cares, by the way.
Yeah,
and as far as Irsay, Mr. Irsay, I also am not scared of the moment. If you're looking for a coordinator or a new head coach after your current head coach, I am not scared. Apparently that's a qualification.
Fire everybody in the front office as well. So,
well, I'm just saying, going into next season, if he's looking for someone who's qualified and not being scared, I'm definitely not scared. So keep that in mind. But listen, I'm with you, man. This Raiders team, I've been trashing them pretty much all season long. We thought they were going to be good at the beginning of the year with Devontae Adams and some additions they made on defense, but it just hasn't played out. And a lot of it has to do with, as I've stated over and over again, I'm not a believer in the head coach.
Yeah, they're unqualified head coach.
Listen, this is probably like the best matchup of unqualified head coaches in history of the NFL, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get to some bets here. I'm a little torn here, but I'm going to ride the Colts here at +4.5 at -114. I think that the Raiders are going to find a way to lose. That's what they've been doing pretty much all season long here. So I'm going to ride with the Colts here. I do have a couple prop bets also. I've got Devontae Adams anytime touchdown -115. You see how heavily targeted he is now with Waller on the injured reserve. I feel like he'll probably get targeted even more. I got Josh Jacobs anytime touchdown -120. This is just me keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that this Raiders team remembers that they've been successful when they run the ball. So if they can somehow run the ball and stick with it, they might have a chance here. And my last one here, Taylor, coming back from injury, you said anytime touchdown at +100. Pretty good value for a guy who's rushed for as many yards as he has. So +100, Taylor, anytime touchdown.
All right, let's go to game doom and gloom. Arizona Cardinals at Los Angeles Rams. We don't even quite know who's going to be playing quarterback in this one. Murray's got a hamstring. Stafford somehow acquired a concussion in a game that he played the whole game.
It was a delayed reaction.
Now, maybe he was watching the game tape, because I believe it gave both of us a concussion as well, having to watch that mess of a football game. And it's not just the Rams. Tampa Bay was also brutal in that game.
Oh, yeah. I love how everybody was like, oh, Tom Brady's back, vintage Tom Brady. I'm like, really? The guy had like 4 chances in the last 2 minutes. Like, come on. Don't give the guy too much credit.
Throwing ground balls for 3/4 of the game. Once again, I reiterate my take that announcers should be on a 4-year limit and then replaced, because Tony Romo was calling that game like we were watching the greatest football game ever played, and I was ready to vomit in my mouth as I was watching it. But nonetheless, Cardinals-Rams, we don't know who's playing quarterback. I will say I have a bet, but it's stipulated here on a couple things. I'm curious your take. I think Stafford will probably get cleared. I don't know what Kyler Murray's status is. Nor do I know what his mindset is. He seems like a sissy, so he'll probably sit out, which is fine, because that would be my stipulation in the bet. But what do you have here in this one?
Well, for those of you who are unaware, apparently the in-season edition of Hard Knocks on HBO has kicked off with the Cardinals.
Yes.
So I'm really interested to watch that, to see what's going on.
Had one with the Hopkins and Murray yelling.
Yes, that's why I want to watch it, to be honest with you. It's like watching Real Housewives of the NFL or whatever. But
he was politely asking where the hell
he was looking. Yeah, I saw that, and I was wondering the same thing. So I can't really blame Hopkins for that one. But listen, I got the same thing. I've got it in parentheses here on this game. It says, if Matthew Stafford plays, otherwise I have no play. So here are my plays for this Arizona Ram game. I've got over 38.5 points for the game at -114. Both teams are bad, but the Rams D is a little stingy when it comes to giving up points, which scares me a little bit. But I do feel that if Matthew Stafford's healthy enough to play, going up against a pretty weak, Arizona team, both ways actually, I feel like this over is actually not too bad. It's pretty low at 38.5. I've also got Kupp anytime touchdown. It's been dropped down a bit because I think Wolford's going to start here.
Yeah.
I don't think Matthew Stafford's going to play. Just based off the numbers I'm getting for these prop bets.
Quarterback, yes.
Listen, we don't care about the third quarterback. If we can get a good game out of our second stringer, I'd be completely satisfied with that, because Stafford has just looked so trash this year. Mm-hmm. Now, I know it's not all on him. A lot of it has to do with his offensive line and the scheme that we've been running, but that's neither here nor there. Let's focus on bets here. I've got Kupp anytime touchdown at -105. Probably some of the best stats I've seen for an anytime touchdown for Kupp. And I'm assuming it's because Vegas also thinks that Stafford's the no-go here. But I think that even with Wolford there with the Wolf Pack, he's decent. We saw him 2 years ago, the final week of the season, and then we saw him in a playoff game when Jared Goff was hurt. And he didn't look horrible. He's not a starting quarterback, but he can give you enough juice. Reminds me almost a little bit of like the situation over in Buffalo. Their backup quarterback is not a starter necessarily, but he's good enough to at least get you through week to week here. And then my last one here, you're probably going to laugh at this one because I tend to ride it pretty often here. Higbee anytime touchdown at +330. Again, this one I kind of like, even if Wolford plays.
Allen Robinson. So
I have this week because I do think that Wolford's going to start. And if Wolford starts, I do like this Higbee. We see it a lot of times with these backup quarterbacks and these young quarterbacks also. They tend to look to the security blankets, which is usually a running back or a tight end, big bodies down the middle. So Higbee at +330, I think is pretty good value here, even if Stafford doesn't play. But that's pretty much it for this game.
Yeah. I'm not worried about Wolford being okay. I'm more worried about him running head first into Isaiah Simmons and trying to run through him and getting a concussion in the second quarter.
Yeah, didn't he do that during the playoffs?
Yeah, that was a playoff game. That's it. Goff in.
Goff had to come back in with a banged up hand.
Yes. I watched him numerous times, as we talked about 3 or 4 years ago at Wake, and that's his favorite maneuver.
Is that Mo?
Head first to run into a very large linebacker.
And he's not the biggest of quarterbacks either, which is a little alarming.
So I looked it up just for funsies. He's also active. So my guess is McVay has also studied enough tape on Wolford to understand. But it's Bryce Perkins. He was at Virginia for a little bit. Really athletic, big guy.
Really athletic.
Yeah. Cannon of an arm. Not always that accurate, but pretty athletic guys. So I don't know if they can send me a line on Perkins over under rush yards and anytime touchdowns, but I'd be willing to bet on it if they would send me a line. I don't know if you can bet on emergency third string quarterbacks getting in the game, but I would be pro doing that. Anyway, my bets. I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals plus 3.5 or 4, because that's what I saw the line last at. If Colt McCoy is a go.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think if Colt McCoy gets the start, I think that the Cardinals want to throw Colt McCoy out there. And I think Kingsbury and I think all the receivers would just love to dominate a game with Colt back there. We saw him do it a couple times last year. I think if Colt gets it, this becomes a little bit closer game. Now, if Kyler's in there and, fake grabbing his hamstring, 2 times after he gets hit and limping around, the Rams are going to run away with this pretty quickly, though I probably shouldn't state run away, judging from...
With their 13 points per game average,
offensively, especially in the fourth quarter, where I think they just would have been better off kneeling than running whatever offensive plays those were that were being called, or the fact that I think they got confused and thought the sideline continued the clock moving and didn't stop the clock. I don't know if they need to go over that and film, but you probably shouldn't give up the sideline if the other team has no timeouts, and you shouldn't give up the sideline on 10-yard passes for 5 straight plays.
Don't get me started on that defense, man. I tweeted out last week while the game was going on about my disdain for the defensive coordinator, and I had a lot of Twitter followers kind of chime back about how he's not the problem. And listen, I get it. There's a lot of issues here, okay? But I've been complaining about the defensive coordinator for over a year now. And even when they won the Super Bowl, they were making their playoff run. I still didn't like the scheme that he puts together. He's got a lot of great players, and he puts them in situations where they're just not at their best. And thankfully, a lot of these guys are really, really great players, so they can overcome some of that. But it's becoming a serious issue, and I know that there's more issues with this team, but I'd be so happy to see him go now. Not trying to talk trash about him, but I'm spending way too much time on a bad team here.
Yeah, I am, because, yes, the defense is not the issue, but when you give up 8 straight passes down the sideline...
It's that softy they like to play, man.
No timeouts. There's an issue.
The thing is that when you play against the Rams, you know that you can dink and dunk.
Yeah.
You're going to get 3-4 yards because they play such soft coverage. And then guess what? You get a couple of those plays, you put yourself in 3rd and short situations.
Yeah, and before that, I hammered the offensive play calling that whole fourth quarter. You saw the Tampa Bay drive down the series before, and the only reason they weren't leading is because Scotty Miller dropped a touchdown pass. And their choice of offense was just disgusting that whole fourth quarter, where they weren't even trying to get points. They were just happy to score 1 touchdown and try to win the game. Nonetheless, Cardinals, Colt McCoy, if he plays, plus 3.5 here. And then if Colt McCoy plays, I like this. If he's not a go, I probably won't end up taking it. But James Conner, 2+ touchdowns. It's not even that great. It's 10-1. But I assume they will at least try to run the ball a little bit like they did last year with James Conner and score a couple touchdowns. So, and, the Rams have been a little soft against the run so far this year. So it might be. Now, granted, you got 2 teams who can't run the ball worth crap and 2 defenses who haven't been able to stop the run very well all year. So I don't quite know what to do with that, the whole enigma of this game. But anyway, those are my 2 bets for that one. We'll move on to the next one, and I will say I got nothing for this because, A, I don't know what to do with one of these teams, and B, it's just... I guess I just can't make myself take the Cowboys as 4-point road favorites in Lambeau. But I very much want to grab this because Green Bay just sucks ass, but I just can't do it. So Cowboys, Green Bay, Dallas -4. What are you going with here? Do you have enough sense to just grab the Cowboys, or have I broken your spirit about taking road favorites?
Well, listen, my spirit's definitely at least cracking when it comes to taking road favorites, but I'm still at least on the boat here. Real quick update: Geno Smith to Lockett for a touchdown here, 9-21, fourth quarter. Anyways, for those who care, Dallas, Green Bay. I'm going to go ahead and ride Dallas here, -3.5. That's what I found him at. Not great, especially with that hook. And Green Bay, again, I'm assuming this is the game that I want to talk about the weather. I'm assuming there's going to be bad weather here, so it scares me a little bit to take that 3.5, especially when it might be like a run-heavy game, which is probably what Green Bay does best. But unfortunately for them, they're going up against a solid defense in the Dallas Cowboys, so that scares me a little bit too. And I got one prop for this game, which is Tony Pollard anytime touchdown at -120. And the only reason I kind of like that one is Zeke I believe he's a game time decision with his knee. So even if he is a go, bad weather, possibly really cold over in Lambeau Field, I think Pollard probably gets the majority of the touches in this one.
Yeah, I was a little, because Green Bay's run defense has been awful. I really wanted to grab Pollard, but looking at the props, I looked at them, last night and then today, and they had a lot of Zeke props, which we might not be on the inside, but certainly guys who make lines are on the inside. And if they're putting Zeke props and they, put them at pretty normal Zeke prop numbers, it tells me that he's probably going to go. And that, scares me off a little of Pollard. If there had been no chance of Zeke, I would have been all over Pollard on a handful of things here, as bad as Green Bay's, rush defense has been. Not that the pass defense has been all great. I will say the Packers defense was pretty good last week. It wasn't the problem. Interceptions on the goal line were the problem. I think they had three, at least two right on the goal line. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of this Green Bay team. I can't bet on them. So, this would be a spot where I'd automatically, just take even a bad team. But I no longer want to be in the Green Bay business. I took them for that alternate line, last week, which isn't even a real bet. You don't assume you're going to win those. You're just putting a little long shot money to see if you can hit it. And it sucked my soul because we had that game on at least half the game, watching how bad that was. And I was just done. So I couldn't find anything to really do. We talked about Pollard and Elliott. I don't know if the Cowboys can pass, so I'm not real aggressive on CeeDee Lamb. And basically the Packers, one, they have no offensive weapons left. Their line is butchered. Half the receivers are out, and Aaron Jones was on the injury report all week, so I don't even know how healthy he is. And it's a bad line. So I just was like, yeah, I just will skip this one. So we'll get to the two night games. Chargers versus the Niners. The Niners are getting healthy, but I thought this was a pretty big number. My dislike for the Chargers, but it's more a dislike for the Chargers when they're favorites. When they're getting 7.5 points, I'm a little bit more aggressive. I don't know if the receivers are going to play. They seem to be, at least one of them seems to be a probable-ish go tonight, but you don't really know till game time. But I'm all about the Chargers here, taking this 7.5. It's not like San Francisco. They dominate you, but they're one of those teams that it's a little bit like Miami. They dominate you, but they always seem to be in a 3-point game as well. And the Chargers, we know, are always in 3-point games.
Well, I'll tell you what my plays are for this game. I'm on the same boat as you. I think that, I would have normally taken the Niners here, especially at home, had the number been like at 3.5, maybe even 4. But I found them at 7.5. So I'm taking the Chargers here plus 7.5. I like that little hook, especially. I feel like they can keep it within a touchdown here. Now, is there a chance that they get blown out by the Niners? Of course there is. This Niner defense, when healthy, is elite. The question is, can they put up that many points? I know the Chargers defense has been wishy-washy pretty much all season long, but they do have enough weapons to where they can also change the outcome of a game. So I'm going to take the Chargers here at plus 7.5. -110. I do have a little note here. It says it could just be the NFC West hater in me taking the Chargers, but either way, I'm going to take them. And then I got a couple prop bets here. I got Deebo Samuel anytime touchdown at plus 110. Pretty good value. He seemed like he's gotten a little more value ever since McCaffrey came into the fold. Then I've got Eckler anytime touchdown at plus 110. He's such a big part of that offense. especially with the receivers being banged up. He's been catching balls left and right also. So he's a dual threat coming out of the backfield in the passing game and in the running game. And then I have Austin Eckler over 44.5 rushing yards at -113. That one I'm a little scared of because I know the Niners defense tends to be pretty stout, especially against the run. But I think 44.5 is pretty good, especially for a guy who's dual threat, like I mentioned earlier, in the passing game and in the rushing game. I think it opens things up for him, opens up some gaps in the running game. So it gives him a little more of a shot to hit at least 50 yards in the game.
Yeah, I'm just going Chargers +7.5. It was hard to get any, player props on the Chargers because they were so banged up. And, I haven't seen enough of this San Francisco offense to really want to be aggressive on, I don't know what Christian McCaffrey and Debo's sort of splits will do. They're sort of similar in their hybrid type guys. And then Ayuk's been playing really, really well. And, Kittle will be out there, but you never know if you're getting George Kittle from 3 years ago or George Kittle, who also might have passed away 3 years ago and his zombie corpse is out there. It's at least a little bit more lively than Russ's, but it's never sort of come back to what it was, a couple years ago when he was probably challenging, Kelsey as the best tight end in the league. It's a little more on the normal curve of how tight ends go. They have a couple good years, but they get so banged up because of, blocking and then, a lot of DBs having to take chip shots at their knees because they're so big and they can't get them down. So he doesn't look the same as he used to look. But just wanted to see this offense a little more before I got real aggressive with player props. So just the Chargers +7.5 on this one for me. And then Monday night, the NFC East battle, Washington Commanders, Philadelphia Eagles. I was pretty shocked this line got up as big as it did. I get the Eagles are dominating, but 11 just, that seemed quite big from me. I was pretty big on taking Washington plus the 11 here. I don't know if they can win this game outright, but they've been able to keep all these games close, and I don't look for that to change too much here.
Now, I agree with you. I'm on the same boat. I'm not sure exactly what we can expect out of this Washington team, but I thought that spread was way too high for me to take. I know Philadelphia is undefeated, and they're the last undefeated team, but I still don't feel like they've really been truly challenged here this season so far. Not that Washington is going to do that, but a divisional opponent that knows each other pretty well, you can at least expect, some sort of I guess competition there. But so I'm not going to go ahead and take that spread, but I will take reluctantly. I will take Philadelphia's first half at -6 at -135.
I think that's a better bet. Philly's gotten out to really, really good first half starts and then sort of pulled
taking their foot off the pedal. Yeah. I agree with you, and that's why I think the first half is probably the smarter bet to take here at -6. Still kind of high for a first half, but you look at this Philadelphia team and the offense, and they've been executing pretty well so far this season. So not a horrible bet, but I would have liked the number to be a little bit lower. But either way, I've got two more prop bets for this game. I've got Goddard anytime touchdown at +210. He's been a pretty effective weapon on the offense. Now they don't pass as much as other teams do, but when they do, they tend to look at either AJ Brown or the tight end. So I like Goddard anytime touchdown at +210, and I also like AJ Brown anytime touchdown +115.
Yeah, this was one where I thought the player odds were a little bit. Like I said last week, I thought they got aggressive on McLaurin, touchdowns and 2 touchdowns in yardage, and it seemed to hold true. And then last week I randomly hit that nice little parlay with Curtis Samuel on the touchdown and over yards that paid pretty big. Granted, the referee had to take out one of the 3 guys that was sitting on top of him, but nonetheless,
that was so obviously interference by the refs. He looked dead at him and then rushed forward and knocked him out. I was like, oh my gosh, really? 'Cause I think it cost me. I'm not sure. But yeah, it was so blatantly obvious interference by the refs.
Well, yeah, because you bet on the Vikings straight, and I think you only came away with a push or a loss.
Yes,
I can't
it
remember
was a
which
push.
one it was. But I hit that big 7-1 parlay. I'm not going to complain about the ref taking out someone and the dumb quarterback throwing into triple coverage because it's not like I've never been screwed by sportsbook plays that have cost me. So when I can get one of those, I'll take it. So no player props for me on that one. Just going to take the Commanders plus 11. Any parlays for you got going this week?
Yeah, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 6 parlays.
Oh, look at you! You're taking after me because I only got 2. We've switched roles this week.
So one of us had to. I know that it was a little thin, and I was a little concerned that you are a little smarter when it comes to finding good value. I tend to go more with my gut and feeling. So I've got a few though. So let's get going on parlays.
All right, I'll give my 2, and then you can give your 6. I mentioned Davis Mills has been good against the blitz and man coverage. So I got 2+ passing touchdowns and 225+ passing yards. That's 5-1. And then I talked about the Cleveland Brown defense. Jeff Wilson Jr. over 59.5 rush yards. Raheem Mostert over 59.5 rush yards at plus 500 as well. So those are my 2 parlays. Not a big week for the parlay world for me. Hopefully next week we get a little bit better player odds and I can make a couple more bets on this week. So what are your 6?
So here's my parlays, and I've got them kind of categorized here. Now these are mostly for value, and like I said, these are mostly gut feeling parlays here. So my first one's a spread parlay. It's a 4-legger. I'm taking Tennessee minus 2.5, Dallas minus 3.5, Giants minus 4.5, and Miami minus 3.5 at plus 1260. So pretty good value there for a 4-teamer. My next one is an anytime touchdown scorer parlay. It's also a 4-legger. Justin Fields, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, and A.J. Brown at plus 1303. The next one here, another anytime touchdown, but this was a 3-legger. Justin Fields, Nick Chubb, and Barkley. That's only a plus 552, but still pretty good value, a little safer with just being a 3-legger. Then I've got Chubb, Henry, and Eckler. This is the leading touchdown scorers parlay at plus 474. Then I've got a money line parlay. It's not really worth it, but it's a little safer. So if you want a little bit of value with the safer bet, here's a 3-leg money line parlay. Kansas City, Dallas, and Philly at plus 118. So really, really heavy favorites, but at least you're getting plus value when you group these 3 together. And then I got a money line upset parlay here. High risk, high reward. Detroit money line, Indianapolis money line, and Arizona money line at plus 1333.
I like that one.
I like that one too.
Only if Colt McCoy plays. I don't want any part of Kyler Murray.
Only if Wolford plays.
Give me the Colt McCoy. All right. That's our show. Be sure to like and subscribe. We got a lot coming to you next week. We're going to do our World Cup preview. We're still in negotiations with Achilles Reign to see if we can get him in here to give his World Cup with us as well. But Dynamite David will be with us. We're in negotiations with Achilles Reign.
Contract dispute.
We got, of course, week 12 of the college football season. College football season starting to wrap up. You don't want to miss that. Dynamite David, can he maintain and keep the 25 grand he started with? It's going down there quickly. He's got 2.5 weeks to try to keep it alive. Of course, Achilles Reign and I will be back next week, plus Winning Daily. Don't want to miss any of our content. Like, subscribe, that's our show, and we're out.